Hey crafters, thanks for joining me. Today I'm going to make a quick and easy card with a spinning element. Hope you enjoy! So I started with a piece of paper that's 5.5 inches squared. So my finished card size will be 5 3/4 inches by 5 3/4 inches. Distress Oxide, this is abandoned coral, and I blended it around the outside of the card. Now I didn't worry too much about making this a perfect circle in the center, but I wanted the color to gradually blend inwards. So next I added some spice marmalade, and these two colors work really well together. They look fabulous. This isn't a color blend that I would normally use, so I find that if I'm stuck for ideas, I experiment with new color combinations, and that helps me get my crafty mojo back a little. And finally, in the center, I use some squeezed lemonade Distress Oxide. Now, squeezed lemonade is a very light, pale color, and it's very difficult to apply heavily, so it just needs a little bit more work than the other Distress Oxides. Now, once I was happy with the placement of the colors, I just went back and blended them together until I had a nice smooth gradient. Now, my inspiration for this card was to reuse one of my first Lawn Fawn sets that I ever bought, which is How You Been, which you'll see shortly. Now, once I finished ink blending, I used some perfect pearls mixed with water and just spritzed it over the entire background. And then I used my heat tool to dry the background. And you can see this gives you a beautiful shimmer over the entire background. Now, if you prefer, you could just spray it in some areas, but I quite like the effect that it gives you on the whole background. So I used the main stamps from How You Been, which is this jar here, and there's also a group of jelly beans that I'm going to stamp directly into the jar. And then I stamped some single jelly beans. And in total, I used 21 jelly beans on this card, but you can always add more or fewer depending on what effect you're going for. Now, I also used one of the sentiments from this set that says How You Been, but you'll see this later on in the video. Now, to make this spinning element on the card, I used some nesting circle dies, and in total I just used these 3. So my biggest circle is 4 inches, and I used a 2.5 inch circle on the inside and cut a acetate donut, as you see here. And then using the middle circle, which is the 2.5 inch, I put the 1.5 inch circle on the inside and cut 2 donuts with white card. So altogether you need these 3 circles. Now, before assembling that, I just colored in all the jelly beans, and I just did the coloring really quickly, adding a darker color on the top and bottom of all the jelly beans, and then a lighter color. And I used the Copic markers to color these in. If you'd like to know the specific colors, let me know and I'll list them in the comments. Now, once I colored them all, I added some faces to all the jelly beans. And then I added some white gel pen highlights. And I think that really helps to bring these jelly beans to life. I also went ahead and colored the jelly beans in the jar and added white gel pens similar to this here. Now, to add the spinning element to the card, I took the 2 paper donuts and I glued them together first. And then I just eyeballed where the center of the card was and glued this onto the center. Once that was secure, I left it for a few moments to dry. I used the clear acetate donut and put it around the small inside donut. Now, if you want to make this even more secure, you could add another circle on top, which will stop the acetate circle from falling off. But instead I'm using that jar, and that sort of keeps it in place. So I'm just going to add some foam squares onto the center. And I doubled up these foam squares so that there's 2 on top of each other. And then I'm going to put the jar of jelly beans on top of the circle in the center. Now I'm just going to place the jelly beans around the outside of the card onto that acetate donut. Now I started with mine being more or less symmetrical, and then I added jelly beans in between each of the points. But I didn't want the sequence of the jelly beans to be organized, so I made them more or less random. Now once I added the first 8, I just tested to make sure that it would move properly. Then I added a few jelly beans on the outside of the card, and then some more on that acetate donut. As I mentioned earlier, altogether there are 21 jelly beans on the card, including 3 on the inside. So once I was happy with all my jelly beans, I added my sentiment, and I just backed my sentiment with a piece of rose gold mirror card, and I'm going to use the same mirror card around the entire front of my background. So I'm just going to apply some glue on the back of this and glue it onto the mirror card, and that is cut to 5 3/4 inches squared. And I think this very subtle pinkish rose gold color works really well with the Distress Oxides that I used. Now once that's secure, I'm going to glue the whole thing to a 5 3/4 inch card base. And then I can decorate the inside of the card. Now there's lots of different sentiments that come with this How You Been set, but I decided that I wanted to make this into a birthday card. So for the inside of the card, I'm going to stamp that empty jar again, but this time I'm going to use the Spice Marmalade Distress Oxide, and that will help to tie in the colors on the outside of the card to the inside. Then I'm also going to stamp that group of jelly beans inside the jar. And then I will stamp my sentiment, which just says Happy Birthday. Now once I'm happy with the sentiment, I'm just going to glue in those 3 leftover jelly beans on the inside of the card. And that will help to add a little bit of color in there. You could always add more colored jelly beans on the inside of the card if you like. So now I'm just going to add some finishing touches on the outside of the card. I'm going to use some clear jewels, and I'm using some white glue that dries clear. So once the glue is dried, they will just look sparkly and clear. And I'm just putting these in random places around the outside of the card, just making sure that they don't get too close to that spinning mechanism. And once those are glued on, you can see the finished card. And this spinning mechanism, you can use your finger to spin it around. And it's hard to stop playing with this spinning mechanism. It's so much fun. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found this video inspiring. Be sure to subscribe so that you're notified whenever I post a new video. Have a crafty day!